A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. At that time, Herod sent and seized John and bound him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because he had married her. For John had said to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." And Herodias had a grudge against him and wanted to kill him. But she could not, for Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and kept him safe. When he heard him, he was much perplexed, and yet he heard him gladly. But an opportunity came when Herod on his birthday gave a banquet for his courtiers and officers, and the leading men of Galilee. For when Herodias' daughter came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guests. And the king said to the girl, "Ask me for whatever you wish, and I will grant it." And he vowed to her, "Whatever you ask me, I will give you, even half of my kingdom." And she went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask?" And she said, "The head of John the Baptist." And she came in immediately with haste to the king and asked, saying, "I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist here and now on a platter." And the king was exceedingly sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he did not want to break his words to her. And immediately the king sent a soldier of the guard and gave orders to bring his head. He went and beheaded him in the prison and brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard of it, they came and took his body and laid it in the tomb. The Gospel of the Lord. We have always heard about the story of the beheading of John the Baptist, his imprisonment and consequent death. We have always shared that Herod could not stand his ground. We have always shared that it was important for John the Baptist to die in conformity with the death he ought to have died as Elijah, which he didn't die. We've had such preachings as saying that he who kills by the sword dies by the sword. And John the Baptist, since he slayed the 450 prophets of Baal by slicing their heads off, his own head also will be sliced off too. We have lots of preachings and homilies that have brought out some things regarding John the Baptist. But today, I want us to speak on something, to cogitate, to think about something that really concerns us. When we look at the story of today, let us shift away from John the Baptist and concentrate on Herod himself. Herod is actually a son of God, no doubt, like you and I, endowed with power and authority. That's number one. And also endowed with opportunity for temptation. That's number two. Herod was a man who had committed a sin. He took his brother Philip's wife. And I would dare to say the same process with which he eventually beheaded John the Baptist is the same process with which he eventually married his brother's wife. The same process. Now, have we discovered the process of temptation in our lives? Because it is the one thing that we need to search for. We need to examine in order for us to fight it. What gain have we if we become the devil's fool for as long as we live? Do you know the kind of disappointed you and I will be disappointed in ourselves when we eventually die and then we discover that throughout our mortal lives we were slaves under Satan? Even though God is saving us, even though God is merciful to us, do you think we will be able to forgive ourselves for the kind of carelessness we lived our lives by? Because every one of us are living today, we are living with so much confidence, we indulge sin, and then we are proud sometimes about it because we are making use of powers. Do you know the kind of regrets we are going to regret when we discover that all the evil things we used our powers to do were the reasons why our powers couldn't make us stars while we are on earth? Because a power cannot just stay without being used. If God does not use the power he gave you, Satan will use it. Now, we will regret intensely if we discover that if we had just given ourselves over to God, the powers in us would have been used to produce stardom. But instead, we allowed temptations to just put us on a particular level, and then we lived under that level for all eternity, for the entirety of our lives. When we get over there, where truth is exposed the way it is, where no one needs to tell us the truth, but we ourselves, we see it because we have the power. You know how disappointed we would be that we used our mortal power to act as a slave under Satan? So let us look at the skills of temptation. Let us look at this particular temptation that Herod fell into. Number one, Herod has pride. Now, pride is a gateway the devil is going to explore. But that Herod has pride didn't stop him from loving the truth. Herod loved the truth. That was why he himself protected John the Baptist. Imagine the man who protected John the Baptist was still the man whose hand gave the command to kill John the Baptist. What was the difference? The difference was the devil searched for ways by which he could enter Herod to destroy John the Baptist. He didn't see until he discovered the one that he originally used to tempt Herod to take his brother's wife. Let us try and discover the pathway through which Satan uses us. Everybody have a place. We all have a particular spot that Satan comes to press. He is the champion of human nature and knows from head to toe the area where he's going to touch, and then will be inspired for darkness. Now let us look at the progress. Herod has committed a sin, granted. And now Herodias was part of that sin, because obviously she would have even been part of the temptation. Which means Herod also likes good things, material things. You saw how he liked the dance of the daughter. And they now asked, declare anything you want. So it means he does not have control over his appetite. Number one is pride. Two is he does not have control over his appetite. Do you know how many men have fallen just because of food and because of women? Do you know how many graces had been lost just because of food or because of women? If we are to think about the men's side. And the same thing for the women's side too. Because a man can be sent to destroy a queen, supposedly. And then she will find herself to be a slave perpetually. Yes. Many women were born to be queens. But the moment they submitted their body to the wrongest person, they perpetually become slaves. You know the spiritual powers that women have, the spiritual powers that God deputed women will be sufficient to heal a nation, can decide to change the fortune of a particular seat of government. So we need to understand the progression of temptation and what the devil aims at. So the man who was protecting John the Baptist became the same man who killed John the Baptist. How and why? Very much clear. Because the devil explored the two aspects of his weakness, the two gateways through which he can easily enter him. It was very much clear that when John the Baptist's truth hit Herod, Herod was pained. Herod was shaken by the truth. He felt guilty. That was why the Bible said that he was much perplexed whenever he heard him. But yet, he heard him gladly. He was happy, which meant that Herod had somebody who could save him, who could lead him to heaven when he is prepared to, when he is able to surmount his temptation. If we do not know the areas where we can easily be tempted, we cannot cover it. We cannot tempt it. So while Herod is banking on the person that will save him from his temptations, the devil was planning for Herod to use his own hand to eliminate that person that would save him from temptations. Do you know what it means for John the Baptist to speak to you? What was he searching for? For you to change and become a king that's like a god. Herod would have been one of the kings that would have made great difference in the history of his generation. But he passed away as one of the greatest fools of his time. An opportunity came on Herod's birthday. That's for somebody who loves entertainment. And for somebody who is proud. And so see how the devil played the dice. Very simple. Herodias is the image of Satan in that life. Herodias had sought ways to kill John the Baptist. The husband was protecting him. So that tells you, simple. Herodias is the principality of darkness. Why Herod is just a man that can be a tool to both sides, either to the side of God or to the side of the devil. Many of us are standing like that, either to be in the side of God or the side of Satan. Are you not seeing it? You love God so much, but you see the number of sins that we commit. Is it not clear? So we are like that. And then when the priest preaches and hits your matter, you could get angry. You could get frustrated. Is father talking to me? Did he hear about my story? But again, you'd like to hear for the person who loves God and who loves himself and who wants to be saved. But that does not stop Satan from accessing the areas of our weakness to make fool out of us. And then Herod's daughter danced. That was part of the entertainment. He loved entertainment. And then he crossed boundaries by opening his mouth, thinking he has power. Now, the power that we have, the moment it is used by another, it is no longer under us. But the moment it is used by God, that power belongs to us. Because we are created in God's image and likeness. We are co-heirs to eternity. And we are meant to be co-heirs of his kingdom. So he does not reduce us. When we find our powers, we align it under the authority of Christ. We act in the name and in the person of God. But when that power is under Satan, Satan seizes the power and makes us slaves. So see what his power did. One of his powers is the ability to make a statement that cannot be revoked. And that is guided and supported by pride. And then the other part of his powers is loving good things. And that is supported by his indisciplined appetite for material things. So the two conditions wedged the two sentiments. I was able to produce the greatest flaw of the universe. That when it was time for him to make the final decision that made him the greatest fool of all time in his generation, he didn't have the sense to know that he doesn't have authority over life. And that's where the lies of Satan come in. He doesn't have authority over life. He could have authority over kingdoms, but he doesn't have authority over life. And he would have been able to tell the daughter, now look, when I said have my kingdom, I'm referring to material things. I'm not referring to the ability to disintegrate a spirit from a body. So before the devil uses us, he makes us fools and idiots, first of all. And a man gave the order for someone who would have rescued his soul to be killed. Now, who lost? Who is the one at the loss? It's not John the Baptist. It's not. He didn't lose. Because that's the natural pathway to ascension. Even Jesus himself went through it. So he didn't lose at all. If they had not cut off his neck, a mosquito would have still sent him to the grave. Or one sickness or one small microbes that had affected an organ would have still sent him to the grave. Or years long can send him to the grave. So he even died in the hands of someone who was created in God's image and likeness. So his death is of greater dignity than being killed by a snake, or by an earthworm, or by a crocodile, or by a lower animal, or whatever the case is. Now Herod lost everything. Herod was the one that lost everything because he lost the opportunity for salvation and himself used his own hands to write the writ of his own condemnation. There is nothing that is as demeaning and as destructive as self-inflicted condemnation. As we extol the virtues of John the Baptist, and as we ask him to pray for us who are still here struggling, we must understand this. One of the greatest triumphs of a Christian soul is the discovery of Satan's trick in his or her life and destroying it while still on this earth here. The moment we're able to quench sin, every other power and authority that are in us will be revealed and will be built into mountains that cannot be shaken and that nothing can ever move.